Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in. My name is Chris, and I just want to say that this is my first time doing anything solo, and I have debated over the last few weeks on what to do, the format, the name, how I'm going to do this, but after agonizing too much, I figured I'm just going to go ahead and jump in, kind of get started with what I want to do, and then just figure it out from there. So I'm going in head first, and we'll see how this goes, where it takes us. It may run me into a wall, and that's okay. So anyway, I would like to get started with just discussing my very first encounter that I ever had with a DogMan. So let's just get right to that. So it was the summer of 2008. I have at that point, I have two girls, and at that time they were, I believe, but they were between the ages of 3 and 1 years old. A very good friend of mine and I had plans to hang out that night, and since my husband didn't have to work the next day, it was to be a great break for me. I think right here I need to describe a few things about my house and the land. I live in the middle of a very large city. You can almost walk to the NFL stadium from my house. One thing that sold me on my house was the scenery. You would never know where you are when you're sitting on my back porch. And to that, I have an upstairs deck as well that sits high in the trees like a tree house. So you're kind of sitting over the land in the back. So I have a creek, a very large creek named after one Indian tribe that's known of this area. There are many. This whole area is named after, like, the Catawba Indians, the Tuckasegee Indians. That's probably going to give away the location, but that's okay. So there's a lot of that as far as the Indian heritage around here. Back to the lay of the land, though, I've always had the deck upstairs set up very nicely with, inviting furniture, and people would just want to come over and just grill out and hang out, and that's what we used to do all the time. So, that's where my girlfriend and I were to hang out that night. Another few things about my land is that if you travel the creek about a quarter of a mile and then bear into the woods another quarter of a mile to the left off the creek, you go right into one of the largest cemeteries in my area as well. If you travel the other way up the creek, maybe about 2 miles, there's a park, which doesn't sound important, but it is in my story. Across the road from my house is what has been verified as a Indian burial mound, and unfortunately there are houses built up on top of it. The reason it has been verified is that my neighbors were, digging in their land, and they were planting their gardens, and they came across bones, and they were certain they weren't human bones, and they had called the police in, and they had verified that the bones were very, very old, too old to do anything on. And so they started investigating and found out that yes, that it was an Indian burial ground. So you have that. So that burial ground's about 60 feet from my house. The creek is about 40. I measure by telephone poles, if that makes any sense. A telephone pole is about 32 feet, so I always kind of try to lay one down in my mind and So that's kind of my measurement. So if that makes any sense. Okay, so anyway, we've often found many relics and many things in the creek that have, well, not relics even. Lately I have found some very disturbing objects. I've found things that are definitely satanic. I've found a hangman's noose, a full-size human hangman's noose that was cut right at the rope knots and burnt. My daughter and I were walking the creek, and initially I grabbed it and I wanted to bring it to the house to show it to my family. And then I just froze and thought about what I was doing, and I put it right back in the tree because you just never know. And honestly, since that time, which was this summer, I've had more occurrences and more things going on, but we'll get into that later. Okay, so back to my night at hand in 2008. My girlfriend that was to come over, we were just gonna kind of catch up and eat a little and sit around and talk. So maybe about 45 minutes after she had gotten here and settled in, kind of started feeling a little weird. We were sitting on the deck and we just kind of started feeling something was just off. Nothing was bad, but we just knew something was off. So I took out my camera, my digital camera, and I just started snapping pictures. And I noticed on the display pad that there were many colorful orbs in the pictures. So they were dancing and doing all these different things. They were changing colors, and they were just, they were actually very beautiful. And it almost felt like they were communicating with me. I don't know. That's probably me being crazy, but I would say certain things like, change colors on the count of 3, and I would name a color and it would. Now, that sounds really crazy, but I do have pictures to show the different colors and things that I will put up. So we got a lot of pictures that night, and after about maybe an hour and a half of these amazing orbs, we noticed that in the pictures a very large orb had come in, and we started reviewing this picture, and we knew that something had changed, and the air started growing very thick, and the whole feeling of everything we had been enjoying that night had changed to something very nefarious. Something different was going on. I got scared. I continued to snap pictures. At this time, I, couldn't see anything but orbs. It was dark out. So let's see, we're about this time, it's probably about, 1:30 maybe even. Because I know actually we sat out there for a very long time that night. Well, then I started hearing noises, walking, noises crunching. I've come to find out the word is bipedal. Something when something walks on 2 legs. At that time, I didn't know what this meant. I had done research in the paranormal, but I had never did any kind of cryptoid research of much to speak of. I was always interested, and I've always been a believer that there are things out there that we don't, no, we don't know everything, of course, and I've just always known that, but honestly, the thought of a werewolf was silly to me. The thought of a dogman it was just silly to me. It really was. The movies had always made them look goofy. So anyway, that was the last thing on my mind. I thought it was a demon. I felt something very demonic going on. So about this time, we started getting things thrown at us, little sticks and little pebbles, nothing heavy, and Lord knows there was big rocks in that creek. Well, I knew whatever it was wanted us to leave. What our train of thought was at that time that there was possibly good souls that were trapped over there, because there was apparently a battle with the Indians here on this land. And we were thinking that it was either that or some kind of residual haunt kind of thing, and that a demon had come through. But we definitely knew that there was a portal. We saw it. We saw the thing. We saw it rise up. We saw it stand up. We saw its eyes. It was very large. It was very large. And yes, it did have ears. But it was so black as night, I didn't see any hair. I just thought a demon. So I went back to my good old southern roots and I started pleading the blood of Jesus, telling that thing it had no room on my property, it could not live here, that I live here, Jesus Christ lives here, It's that good old Southern Baptist stuff, throwing it at it. Well, we made the thing very mad. No longer was it little pebbles that it was throwing at us. At this point, it got very real. Things got very scary. And I'm honestly leaving a lot out right at the moment because it's kind of hard to talk about, but I'm trying. But I fought the thing, not knowing what I was fighting, but knowing in my faith and in my religion that I had power. The thing finally threw a tree at me, and I don't mean a tree limb. I mean an uprooted tree. We were saved from it hitting us in the head because there's other trees and it kind of slowed it down, but it still made its way to us. And it still hit the deck. And we kind of got scratched by it, but we weren't hurt. So at that point we knew it was time to go ahead and call it a night. And so we started wrapping it up, and I told the thing that it had not won, but that I was through fighting. And I went in and, at that point, we just sat and talked about the things, and we didn't go back outside though. Well, I didn't know what to do with what had happened, and I contacted a local paranormal investigative group, and had shared my experience and the pictures and things with them, and My husband did not want the land investigated whatsoever. He said, "Why stir up the devil? Why?" And I agreed with him. But the lady was so intrigued at this point, I had already sent her the pictures, and we started finding things in the pictures. And at the time, they thought it was a steer head because you could see the teeth, you could see eyes, you could see what looked like horns maybe, but I now know what they saw there was a DogMan. I didn't get a great picture of the big tall one or see, I'm torn between, was there two, or did one go from just being a little sneaky, nefarious little devil dog and grow into this big one? Or did this big one come through? Because right where all this happened, the land was scorched. There was a circle about 10 by 8. Perfect circle. Scorched. And there was no grass right there, it's all sand. It was up on top of the bank, on top of the, creek bank. And there's a trail there. And this is the sandy part of it. And it was scorched, sure enough, like a portal. I don't know. So all these different things that happened that night, and for a long time after, different things would happen. I would hear things. People would tell me of the wolf pack that's right here. My brother used to ride a little Vespa to work. He only worked like 3 miles up the road. He lived here for a while, and he told me that at the top of the hill there was a pack of wolves in the morning that wouldn't let him cross. I said, "Well, you're on that, bike. You have power enough, you can go fast enough to go around them." And he said, "You don't understand. They had the road blocked. And there was no way I was going past them." Then I asked my husband about it, and he said, "Yeah, I've seen them too, a lot." Well, then the city had introduced coyotes to the area as well. So after that night, there was a lot of reports of the coyotes attacking children. I would see them, I would hear them all the time. But the strangest thing about the animals is that there's this white owl that's out there. There's nothing else alive out there in this whole beautiful creek. There's no squirrels. There's nothing. But there's this one white owl. He's beautiful. But what does that mean? I've always heard it means something. I don't know what though. Also, there's not even any snakes anymore. We'll get the beginning year spring animals. We'll get the snakes, and we'll get the squirrels and all the animals, and then within a month or two there's nothing but insects. Nothing. That scares me to death to know that I had all these pit vipers. You know, pit vipers are water moccasins and copperheads and all the regular Carolinian snakes, and I get them all sizes, and I don't see one, not one. I've been the whole summer and I haven't seen one in 3 months. Okay, so let me fast forward quite a few years. It's 2016. Many things have happened, and we can talk about those another time, but right now, what's going on? This whole summer, what I know is a DogMan throws rocks at my window at night, not hard enough to break it. He has gotten on the top of my house a couple times. He slapped my house a few times, and when he slaps it, you think the whole house is gonna crumble. And I honestly think if he kept at it, it would crumble. He will, now that there's no longer any neighbors anywhere, right beside my bedroom, the neighbor there, it's their carport. And my husband, who has been the biggest skeptic of all in this, is sure we have a DogMan. He gets woke up in the mornings by that thing slapping the roof of the tin carport. The thing tries to torture us, or not torture, pester us to death. He does. Anytime we go walking, we hear screams, or if we go to the cemetery, because I do have friends and family down there, we'll hear noises like puppies, and I've heard babies crying. I have an 11-year-old daughter, and these noises were driving her crazy. It was calling her into the woods because she wanted to go save the puppies. I had to stop her. And I've had to explain to her exactly what's going on here. Right here, we hear little girls screaming where there's nothing, there's no one, there's no way. The thing is just taunting us. That's the word. It's not torturing us, but he's taunting us. He knows we're aware of him, and we know we are aware. We know he is aware of us. I don't know how this is going to play out. But I do know one thing. If I would not have called upon Jesus Christ that night, a lot of things would have went differently. If not that night, over the years. You may not be a Christian listening to this, and that's okay. I'm not trying to preach the gospel to anyone by telling my story. I am only trying to tell you what I know. And what I know is that this creature absolutely could take my life, could take any of our lives. But we can take some control. know that you do have control. Always know that you do have some control in this. And I know the only control I have is the name of Jesus. So that's my story for now. I would love to talk to others, to tell other stories, come together with other people. I'm terribly sad that others are going through this, but I am glad to know that I'm not going through it alone. So, thank you for taking the time, if you have, to listen to this. Any feedback I would love to hear. Just if you'd like to get in contact with me about anything, you know how to do it through YouTube. Thank you guys. Thanks for listening.